Thank you, Chair. Sitting here, I just reflecting on the fact that I'm in my constituency office, which is on a street where Ivor Novello was born, and Cowbridge Road in Cardiff West, and also where there's a pub called the Ivor Davis, which was named after Ivor Novello, which was his original name. So I feel a link with the Ivors Academy, Graham. You used to work for PRS for music, I think, didn't you, before you took over at the Ivors Academy? So you kind of know a lot of the ins and outs of this. And what's, I think, interesting to the committee is that, we've heard from publishers and they don't seem to be arguing as ardently as you are for the value of the song in streaming services. What's your observation on that?
Thank you. I was going to make a pun about keeping the home fires burning, Kevin, if you are where you are right now. So that's right. I think that the industry is a bit sort of caught by precedent and practice. I think that we would absolutely encourage publishers to speak more stridently on behalf of their songwriters to push the value up. I think we heard Roberto saying that. I think, again, if you look at the submissions, you can see some very clear voices within the publishing community and in the collecting society community advocating for a higher share. I think it seems to be the job of the creators to speak freely on this matter, and that's what we're doing.
Do you think, one criticism might be, you referred to this earlier, that perhaps songwriters give away their rights too easily these days? I mean, there's the famous story of Jerry Wexler stopping Carole King and Jerry Goffin on the street and saying, write me a song for Aretha, you've got to call it Natural Woman. And then Jerry Wexler, and the old saying, add a word, take a third, is credited as one of the songwriters. That might seem fair enough. But when we've heard of there being 10, 12, 15 names on a song, are songwriters their own worst enemies in this sense?
I think it talks to the predicament of songwriters, and I think it would be the same, Horace would say, for performers, in that there's a certain pressure, and I think some of the questioning on the previous panel was about this in terms of the hypnosis and the buyout kind of models. To what extent are creators facing an uncertain future with scarce royalties? So I think it should be the case that people are not giving away their copyrights. I mean, some creators work for free. That shouldn't happen. People shouldn't be giving away their copyrights when they don't need to. And I think some of the education that we need to do is to support creators in this task. But what we are seeing, Kevin, is that, yes, more artists are getting shares, but actually there's now a move the other way, where songwriters are also now advocating to get points on recordings. I think that this talks to the distortions that are going on in the industry right now, where people are doing whatever they need to get money into their pockets.
Okay. Well, Dolly Parton refused to give Colonel Parker any of I Will Always Love You when Elvis was going to record it, and that was the best business decision she ever took in terms of her career, as we're on Dolly's case in this session, it would seem. Can I ask you something else, Graham? Just in previous sessions, we've heard how performer revenues that are unattributed or unattributable end up in black boxes because they can't be given to the correct performer because of incomplete data. Does that happen in songwriting royalties?
Thanks so much for this question, Kevin, because it's really important. It's very much an issue that is huge on the publishing side of the industry, affecting songwriters. So if I might, I'll just explain how we get a black box in the first place. So when a recording is put onto a streaming platform, very commonly it can go up without the required minimum information on who the owner of the recording is, but also who wrote the song. So it will go with the recording owner information, but without any details on what the song is. And that is creating a huge black box of streaming royalties on the publishing side. We would advocate that together with the platforms, and really would like the platforms to join us in this, in saying that no recordings anymore should go forward without this required data, because songwriters will suffer and not get paid. So we put out a statistic, it was a guess, there being over £100 million worth of black box unattributable streaming royalties in the Collecting Society network. No one's disproved that yet. We'd very much like to know what the full scale of it is. But what happens with those royalties is that they are paid out on the streams that have already been paid. And those streams that have already been paid will be the most well-resourced streams. So it's a bonus payment. And we think that system is really wrong. It should be going to good causes, like is happening at PBL.
So the money actually goes to the most successful artists on streaming. Correct. In any case, and as we've heard already, that's divided up by a single pool rather than by any kind of user-centric system. Just to finish up, Horace, with you, if I may, just briefly, I suppose you were in a very successful band in the 70s, Darts. I suppose as Randy Newman once said, whatever happened to the Duke of Earl? Do you get any money through streaming from your participation in Darts?
A trickle, very small. It's interesting. I think there was a pop program on Radio 2 a week ago or something, and someone was telling me, and one of the questions was, can you name 3 of Dart's top 10 hits? And the answer came, who's Darts? So that's a bit disappointing, but there we are. It is streamed, and there is a trickle of royalties. So you have to say. I remember doing Top of the Pops, countless times from sort of 1976 through till about 1981, and every time we did it, we were on with new acts who maybe we only saw once and then disappeared. And that's the point I'm trying to make. All those bands, including our band, but all those bands, and a lot of them, a lot more than Darts, are being streamed now, but the labels don't know and they don't care where those musicians are. And unlike the black box money that gets paid out to the top writers, it doesn't get paid out to anyone. It gets kept by the record labels. They can look back on their contracts and they can find a reason. Well, we don't know where that person is, or they were unrecouped anyway, so we'll keep that. And it's no wonder, as you mentioned in the earlier session, that record executives can be paid 120 million a year. I mean, that's an extraordinary amount of money. And I don't know how you explain that, because I personally, in my 31 years of working for the Musicians Union, and from my 50 years of being a professional musician, I've never met a musician who's earned that kind of money. Never. And yet, the executive who makes all of their money out of the fantastic art forms that writers and performers create can afford to pay them that kind of money. Anybody looking in dispassionately has to see that this is very unfair.
Okay. It's also because there were 9 of you in the band, Horace. That's why it's only a trickle. It's far too many. Okay, thank you. Back to you, Chair.